In the heart of Umuchi, a peaceful village surrounded by verdant hills and flowing rivers, Obina and Adana were known for their love. Their connection was special. They had been inseparable since childhood. One evening, beneath the grand Iroko tree, the elders of the village gathered to bless their union. The Iroko tree, revered by the villagers, was said to hold the spirits of their ancestors, and it was here that the sacred promise was made. May your love prosper and your hearts remain true, for the spirit of Enmimiri will watch over you, the village elder intoned as they exchanged vows. As the spirits of the ancestors whispered through the leaves, the promise was sealed, and everyone rejoiced. Obina was the type of young man whose smile could light up a room, and his charm was unrivaled in the village. He had a way with words that left women swooning, and he knew how to make anyone feel special. Despite his deep affection for Adana, Obina reveled in the attention he received from the women of the village and beyond. Whenever he walked through the village, the women would gossip, admiring his strong frame and quick wit. The men, too, admired his success and his growing wealth as a farmer. Adana, however, trusted him implicitly, and she believed his flirtations were harmless. Little did she know that Obina was hiding something much deeper, something that would soon unravel the fabric of their love. Adana was the granddaughter of Nena, a revered elder who had long served as the keeper of their family's traditions. One evening, after a long day of weaving, Adana sat with Nena by the fire as the old woman shared stories of their ancestors. "You must never forget," Nena said softly, "that your bond with Obina is not only one of love, but of duty. Our ancestors watch over us, especially when our hearts are pledged in sacred union." Nena explained that the union between Adana and Obina was blessed by Ene Imiri, the water goddess and spirit protector of their lineage. The goddess would protect their relationship, but only if the promises of love and faithfulness were kept. If broken, the consequences would be dire. Adana's heart swelled with pride at the blessing, but little did she know that the very strength of their love would soon be tested. As the seasons changed, Obina's behavior began to shift. He became increasingly distant, often staying out later than usual and making excuses for his absences. Adana, initially dismissing her worries as mere paranoia, soon noticed strange signs. A village woman, Ugochi, had warned Adana in passing that she had seen Obina talking intimately with other women. When Adana pressed him about it, he shrugged it off and said, "You worry too much, my love." But as the days passed, the gossip grew louder, and Adana could no longer ignore the whispers. She chose to trust him, but in her heart, a small seed of doubt began to grow. Amara, a stunning woman known for her beauty and grace, arrived in the village one spring. She was well-traveled and full of charm, and it didn't take long for Obina to notice her. Amara had a magnetic presence, and soon she and Obina began spending more time together. At first, Obina didn't suspect anything, but as the weeks passed, she began to see them walking together, exchanging secret smiles and whispered words. It didn't take long before rumors started to spread that Obina had become enamored with Amara. Yet, every time Adana confronted him, he denied it with a calm reassurance that everything was fine. Still, Adana's heart trembled with uncertainty. One night, after a particularly troubling encounter with Obina, Adana fell into a deep sleep. In her dream, she stood by the river bank, where a great storm brewed above her. From the storm a figure appeared, tall and majestic, draped in flowing blue robes. It was Imiri, the spirit who had blessed her marriage. "Your heart is in peril, child," the spirit spoke in a voice like a deep, gentle current. "Your love is under threat, and betrayal is near. But if you hold fast to your integrity, the truth will come." Adana woke with a start, her heart racing. Though confused, she understood the message. Her instincts told her that the time for trusting blindly was over. Obina's behavior continued to change. His affections grew colder, and he started avoiding Adana. When they did speak, it was often in strained, short exchanges. He would go out without explanation, and at times even her touch seemed to irritate him. Adana's worries grew into certainty. Something was wrong. One day, she overheard a conversation with other women at the market discussing Obina's flirtations with others. "I saw him with Amara again, like they were more than just friends," one of the women said. Adana's heart sank, but she remained silent. Her trust in Obina had been shaken, but the depths of his betrayal were yet to unfold. The village had been in turmoil for weeks. Crops failed, cattle fell ill, and Obina's fortunes began to decline. One night, as he lay in bed, Obina heard strange sounds, whispers in the wind, footsteps that didn't belong to anyone in his household. He awoke to find his farming tools mysteriously gone. His field lay fallow despite his usual careful tending. Desperate, Obina sought the help of the village elder, who recognized the sounds as followers. "The spirits are angry with you, Obina," the elder said. "The ancestors do not take kindly to betrayal." But Obina, too proud to admit his wrongs, laughed off the warning. "I fear no curse," he said, but deep inside he felt the weight of something far greater than he could understand, closing in. During the village's grand yam festival, Adana attended with a heavy heart, her mind consumed with doubts. She had heard more whispers about Obina's affairs, but nothing could prepare her for what happened next. As she danced among the villagers, she caught sight of Obina and Amara, sneaking away to the edge of the festival grounds. There, in the shadow of the trees, they whispered and laughed, their closeness undeniable. Adana's heart shattered, and her knees weakened beneath her. She didn't confront them at the festival, but the devastation in her eyes spoke volumes. Her beloved had betrayed her in the worst way possible. That night, Adana confronted Obina in their home. Her voice was steady, but her heart broke with every word. "I saw you with Amara," she said. "Do you truly think I would not notice? You have broken the bond we swore before the ancestors." Obina tried to calm her with reassurances, denying everything. "You are imagining things, my love," he said smoothly. But Adana could see through his lies. "Do not insult me with these false words," she said, standing firm. "I will no longer live in the shadow of your deceit." Obina, caught off guard by her strength, tried to justify his actions, but Adana was resolute. "You have dishonored us both, and the spirits will not stand by." That night, after the confrontation, Obina was restless. He tossed and turned in bed, haunted by the ghostly whispers that had been following him for weeks. His sleep was broken by vivid nightmares in which Aine Marie appeared in her full wrath, her eyes glowing with the fury of 1,000 storms. She spoke with a voice that sounded like thunder. "You have dishonored the sacred bond, Obina. Your actions have awakened my fury. Your betrayal will reflect in every woman you meet. You will be repelled, for your deceit will be visible to all." Obina awoke in a cold sweat, trembling with fear. He knew deep down that the curse was real, and there was no escaping the judgment that had been passed upon him. Despite the curse, Obinna refused to admit his fault. He continued to pursue other women, hoping that the curse would be a temporary inconvenience, something he could laugh off. His charm had always been his strength, and he believed that he could win anyone over with his words and his looks. Yet, the more he tried to seduce other women, the more they began to pull away, visibly uncomfortable with his presence. Every time he tried to hold their gaze, their expressions would shift and they would turn their backs on him. No matter how hard he tried, Obinna couldn't understand why this was happening. The deeper the curse took hold, the more isolated he became. Adana's heart grew heavier with each passing day. She had long suspected Obinna's betrayal, but the revelation shattered her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her grandmother, seeing the pain in her eyes, pulled her aside one evening. "You must not ignore the signs, my child. You know what to do, and Mimiri is watching, and only truth can cleanse the wound in your heart." Adana's grandmother had been the keeper of the village's ancient wisdom and knew the ways of the spirits. She handed Adana a small carved charm, a symbol of protection from Enmimiri. "When the time comes, call on the spirit. Your heart is strong, and you must not let betrayal rule your life." Adana nodded silently, her resolve hardening. In the quiet of the night, Adana called upon Enemeri. As the full moon rose, casting its silvery light upon the river, the water goddess emerged from the flowing stream. She stood tall, her robes swirling around her like liquid silver. "You have endured much, child," Enemeri spoke, her voice echoing like the river's flow. "Your trust has been broken, and now you seek justice. Obinna's actions have invited dishonor to your union. He will face the consequences of his choices, but you must also choose your path." Adana, holding the charm in her hands, asked, "What should I do?" The spirit's eyes softened. "You must stand firm and let him prove his worth through his actions, not just his words. If he truly loves you, he will seek redemption." With those final words, the spirit vanished, leaving Adana with a sense of clarity she had never known before. As Nemiri had predicted, the first signs of the curse were evident when Amera abruptly distanced herself from Obinna. She was once his greatest admirer, but now she refused to even acknowledge his presence. When Obinna confronted her, she coldly responded, "You are not the man you used to be. I see only lies in your eyes. I cannot be with someone who betrays his own heart." Word quickly spread, and the other women in the village who had once admired him began to turn away. At first, Obinna was perplexed. He had never experienced rejection like this before. But slowly he realized that Enmimiri's curse had begun to take effect. His charming nature no longer worked on those he sought to manipulate. As Obinna's interactions with the women of the village became increasingly strained, his reputation began to tarnish. People whispered behind his back, calling him a man who deceives even his own heart. He became an outcast in the very community that had once adored him. His crops failed, and his once thriving farm fell into ruin. His friends, who had once celebrated his success, now avoided him. Desperation set in, and Obinna found himself wandering the village at night, lost in thought, haunted by the ghost of his actions. The curse had not only taken away his charm, but had also stripped him of his dignity. Yet he still refused to believe that it was too late to fix things. In his heart, he hoped that if he could just apologize to Adana, everything would return to normal. Feeling the weight of the curse, Obinna approached Adana one evening, his voice trembling. "I am sorry," he said. his eyes pleading for forgiveness. "I was foolish. Please, give me another chance. I love you, and I want to make things right." Adana looked at him, her eyes filled with both sorrow and strength. "It is not enough to speak words, Obinna," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "The spirits do not listen to empty promises. You must show that you are worthy of forgiveness through your actions." She handed him the charm her grandmother had given her, a symbol of protection. "If you are truly sincere, you will prove it through the way you live, not just the words you say." Obinna, humbled and heartbroken, nodded silently. He knew that only through great sacrifice could he hope to remain back her trust. As days passed, Obinna's isolation deepened. His reputation in the village was in shambles, and he knew he could no longer hide from the truth. One morning, in front of the entire village, he stood tall and declared, "I have wronged the woman I love, and I have dishonored the spirits of our ancestors. My actions have caused pain, and I take full responsibility. I seek your forgiveness, and I promise to change." The villagers watched in silence as Obinna spoke, his voice thick with emotion. Some whispered that it was too little too late, while others were moved by his humility. Adana, standing at the back of the crowd, watched him closely. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, but she knew that forgiveness was not something that could be given lightly. It would require proof over time. The village elders convened to discuss Obinna's fate. They recognized his confession, but they knew that a man's true character was shown through his actions. The elders decided that Obinna must prove his worth by embarking on a journey to help the surrounding villages, offering his services to those in need. Only through selfless deeds can a man regain his honor, the chief elder declared. "If you are truly sincere, you will help those who are less fortunate without seeking anything in return." Obinna, eager to redeem himself, accepted the challenge. Adana, though still skeptical, watched with hope in her heart. She knew that Obinna's redemption, if it was to happen, would take time. Before leaving on his journey, Obinna visited the oracle, a wise woman who lived at the edge of the forest. The oracle was known for her ability to see into the hearts of men. "Your heart is heavy, young man," she said, peering into Obinna's soul. "But redemption is not easy. You must prove your sincerity through actions, not just words." The oracle handed him a small stone, saying, "Carry this with you on your journey. It will guide you when you are lost." Obinna took the stone, feeling its weight in his hand. He knew that this journey was not just about helping others, it was about helping himself. Obinna's first stop was a nearby village plagued by famine. The villagers were struggling to grow crops due to drought, and the people lived in fear that they would not survive the coming months. Obinna offered to help them by using his knowledge of farming and irrigation techniques. He worked tirelessly under the harsh sun, repairing old irrigation systems and teaching the villagers how to make the most of the little water they had. Slowly, the land began to show signs of life. Crops began to sprout, and hope returned to the people. Obinna felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that his labor was making a real difference. After several months of helping the villagers, Obinna received news of a sickness that was ravaging a neighboring village. The people were too afraid to seek medical help, fearing that outsiders would bring more harm than good. Without hesitation, Obinna set out to help, despite the risks involved. When he arrived, he found a village in despair. The sick lay in their homes, and many had already succumbed to the illness. Obinna worked day and night, administering herbs and providing care to the ill. He gave up his own comfort, choosing to sleep in the open and sharing whatever little food he had with the sick. It was during this time that Obina began to truly understand the weight of his past actions. He had spent so much time chasing shallow desires, but now, through selflessness, he was slowly rebuilding his soul. As the months passed, Obina's reputation slowly started to change. The villagers who once whispered his name with disdain now spoke of his kindness and dedication. Yet Obina still had much to prove. One evening, after helping to rebuild a broken bridge in yet another village, Obina found a letter from Adana waiting for him. Her words were simple but filled with meaning. "You are on the right path, Obina, but know this: redemption is a lifelong journey, and you must continue to walk with humility and honor." His heart swelled with hope. Though he had not yet won her love back, he could feel the warmth of her forgiveness slowly growing. It was a sign that he was on the right path. Adana had watched from afar, keeping up with Obina's efforts. She saw how he had transformed from the man who had once betrayed her into someone who was truly seeking redemption. It was then that she realized that forgiveness was not just for Obina, but also for herself. One day, as Obina was returning to the village after a long journey, he saw Adana standing by the river. Her presence was a calm in the storm of his thoughts. She smiled gently, and he knew that she had been waiting for him. Without a word, she handed him a basket of fruit she had harvested, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. "You have walked a long way, Obina," she said softly, "but know that the path to true redemption is long. It is not just about the things you do, but the heart with which you do them." Obina nodded, his eyes filled with tears. He knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Though Obina had proven his dedication to the villagers and to himself, the final test remained: his love for Adana. True love was not about grand gestures or empty promises. It was about sincerity, understanding, and sacrifice. One day, when the river began to flood and threatened the crops in the village, Obina and Adana worked together to build barriers to protect their community. Obina realized that love wasn't just about what you could take from someone, but what you could give. In the midst of the flood, as they worked side by side, he made a vow to her: "I will spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of your love, Adana." Adana smiled but said nothing. She knew that actions spoke louder than words. As the village finally began to flourish again, Obina's transformation was complete. He had shown true dedication, sacrifice, and humility. One day, the village elders called him forward. They recognized the changes in him and decided to lift the curse that had been placed upon him. Obina's charm and personality began to return, but this time it was not driven by selfish desire. It was rooted in the respect he had earned from his actions. "You have redeemed yourself," the chief elders said. "But remember, Obina, redemption is a gift that must be cherished every day." Obina bowed deeply, understanding the weight of the elders' words. He had earned back his honor. With the curse lifted, Obina returned to the village as a changed man. His heart was lighter, his conscience clearer. Yet, he knew that his journey was far from over. Every day was a chance for him to prove that he was worthy of the love and trust that had been given back to him. He approached Adana with a newfound respect. "I will spend my life making amends," he promised her. Adana nodded, her face filled with quiet strength. "True love is not just about words," she replied. "It is about the journey and the growth we experience together." One evening, as Obina and Adana walked along the riverbank, an emiri appeared once more. This time, her presence was serene, and her voice was filled with pride. "You have proven yourself, Obina. Your journey has been long, and the heart you now possess is pure. The curse that once weighed you down has been lifted." Obina fell to his knees in gratitude. "Thank you, Great Spirit. I am forever in your debt." Nememiri smiled, her eyes filled with wisdom. "It is not I who have given you redemption. It is you who have earned it." With that, she vanished, leaving behind only the gentle ripples of the river. As Obina's transformation was complete, the village celebrated with a grand feast. It was a celebration not just of love, but of community, forgiveness, and rebirth. The village elders, the people who had once feared and condemned Obina, now celebrated him as a hero. Adena stood by his side, her heart filled with pride. Together, they had overcome the obstacles of the past, and now they looked forward to a future built on love, trust, and respect. Years passed, and Obina and Adana lived happily together. They raised children who were taught the values of honesty, integrity, and kindness. Obina's farm prospered, and the village grew stronger as it flourished. His legacy was not just one of redemption, but of the power of change and the importance of never giving up on oneself.